Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining me today for Stay Free with Russel Brand. We're talking to Max Blumenthal, one of my favourite journalists. It's a brilliant conversation. We'll be talking about censorship as well, because Elon Musk is taking on the Ireland hate speech bill, and it's a vital thing that he's doing there. We're talking about it in some depth. If you're interested in free speech and proper journalism, you're going to love this show. The first part will be on YouTube, but then the censorship, it just gets to us, man. Feeling the globalists' fingers around our throats, we will slip off and fly into that free stream on Rumble. Click the link in the description, and when you get there, give us a like, subscribe, join us, and then if you want to become a supporter, then you get access to our conversations with like Tucker Carlson and Glenn Greenwald, Vandana Shiva, and you can join those conversations live and pose actual questions to people that will give you serious answers. Today's conversation is one such. You could have joined us live for that. I think we did it live, maybe not, because Max is so edgy. He's the editor-in-chief and investigative journalist at Grayzone. He gets attacked all the time. They're always trying to defund him, demonetize him, and shut him down, and in a way I'm not surprised, because he's got some pretty strong anti-establishment views. Here's Max Blumenthal with some pretty exciting stuff. I'm joined now by Max Blumenthal from Grayzone. Max, thanks so much for coming on.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you as well. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've got to talk about the censorship industrial complex. We've got to talk about the level of control that's being exerted around the reporting on the numerous wars, whether it's Ukraine, Russia, the conflicts across the Middle East, and the significance of that. Our recent investigations that I've been privy to suggest that there are numerous non-government organizations that nevertheless receive government funding that have been involved in censoring, surveilling, de-amplifying, monitoring my content, and providing quotes to traditional media sources or legacy media sources, choose a term. Are you familiar with these types of agencies that provide the cartilage often between the state and private sector and crush dissent by proxy?
I'm intimately familiar with them because they're targeting me as we speak.
What issues do you find that you are most penalized for discussing, and what do you infer from it? How do you use it as a diagnostic tool? How do you use it as a kind of understanding of how power is operating when you experience censure?
Well, the censorship industrial complex works through the media, and it exists as a appendage of the so-called intelligence community, which is neither intelligent nor particularly communal, and actually wants us to be less intelligent and less critical about third rail issues, whether it's COVID or Western imperialism, intervention abroad. So at the Grayzone, we do investigative journalism. I've been focusing on the issue of Israel-Palestine for 15 years or more. And, on October 7th, Hamas attacked Israel from the besieged Gaza Strip, an attack by an occupied militant group. And this unleashed a globally cataclysmic event. And now, we're 118 days later, Israel has slaughtered close to 30,000 people, 40% of whom are children, and it's used the October 7th attack, and not just the attack, but the number of dead and a lot of atrocities to justify what essentially the International Court of Justice has essentially ruled to be genocide, and I consider their assault to be genocidal. Now that's I'm just trying to set the stage to explain an attack that we're facing from the censorship industrial complex. And so we dug into what actually happened on October 7th. And for sure, atrocities took place against Israeli non-combatants, as well as hundreds of other soldiers who were enforcing the siege. But we found, and this is now being confirmed in blockbuster investigations in Israeli Hebrew media, that friendly fire orders were given to the Israeli media to attack vehicles and homes that contained not only Hamas militants, but Israeli civilians, knowing that many Israelis would be killed. And so we now know many Israelis were killed by friendly fire on October 7th. We also know many of the most heinous accusations of atrocities, like, for example, beheaded babies, are completely false and were spread by organizations that are fundraising off of these tall tales. This has all now been exposed in Israeli media, We exposed it first at the Grayzone along with a few other independent outlets and were attacked. The Washington Post approached us about 2 weeks ago through its Silicon Valley reporter. Her name is Elizabeth Dwoskin, and she's the social media reporter. So all of these Silicon Valley reporters from legacy media, corporate media, they're basically stenographers for the censorship industrial complex, which exists to control Silicon Valley and all of the social media platforms. It's why you're on Rumble. And she said, we want to talk to you about minimizing October 7th atrocities. I called her, but I actually called her during our live stream and held her to account for her bogus accusation and her whole record of being a pro-Israel partisan, which is a sort of a separate issue, but she's someone who's dedicated to supporting Israel and pretending to be an objective journalist. She publishes a smear piece about us, and her entire piece is based on research from something called the National Contagion Research Institute. And we've written about this place before, but it's one of many, many intelligence cutouts founded by a former researcher from the Anti-Defamation League, which is an extortion racket for the Israel lobby, but which also works with law enforcement, has hundreds of people in Silicon Valley pressuring Facebook, Meta, Twitter, and everything else. It's running a whole operation to basically dislodge Elon Musk from X because he's allowed too much free speech. And they lied about us, claimed we said most Israeli casualties on October 7th were caused by friendly fire, and basically accused us of being anti-Semites. She also turned to the Atlantic Council, which is a think tank here in Washington, which is funded not by some, independent donors. They're not doing any thinking in there. It's all tank and no think. They're funded by the arms industry, by pro-Israel donors, and by NATO, as well as the Gulf states. It's basically just another front organization for the, for imperial and military interests. But none of that was told to Washington Post readers. Then Bill Maher, who poses as some real politically incorrect atheist who stands above it all, he goes on his show and he cites this article uncritically. And basically, the article links us to Holocaust denial, QAnon, and says that we are October 7th deniers, when all we've done is expose facts which are now corroborated by Israeli mainstream reporters about a day, one of those days, 9/11, January 6th, October 7th, that is still poorly understood and has not been sufficiently investigated by any independent commission.
Now, listen, if you're watching this on YouTube, we can't go any further because Max has got some pretty strong views on, let's call it, Middle Eastern conflict that I wouldn't feel confident putting up on YouTube, but it's really worth hearing these perspectives. So click the link in the description, get over to the stream of freedom that we all swim freely in. Click the link now, get over there.